There's a lot of us in there as well.
Yeah, one of my bosses. And I
Okay, we're going to get started. We're going to get started. Okay, I'll give you a little bit of a sense of what we're going to do over the workshop session, about how much time we've got, reintroduce the wonderful Annette that's here today, and talk a little bit about sense making, which is the focus of our group. Over the course of the session, we'll have a presentation first, and then we'll have kind of two prompt questions where you'll work in your groups, and then we'll kind of share back a bit, ask questions of Annette, and then we'll reflect at the end. So that's the rough arc of what we're going to do. So, sense making. Jacopo introduced this a little bit already, but to kind of resituate ourselves here, when we think about the kinds of questions that city government officials are asking when they're sense making, it's things like, what are the challenges that communities are facing and other actors within the system are facing? It's about what are their needs, and how are they being met, and how could they be better met? It's thinking about how is progress being measured over time. It's sensing and understanding what kind of stakeholder coalitions are kind of formed within the ecosystem that a government might collaborate with or needs to be mindful of their interests, as well as what emerging opportunities are in the environment. And this starts to connect a little bit to seizing, but it's thinking what's out there, who should we be collaborating with, what opportunities might we then seize. So it's all of that kind of scanning of the external environment in which a city government operates to understand who to work with, what the challenges are, what needs are not being met, and who we might collaborate with. So that's a bit of an overview, but I will hand over to Annette, who's going to talk us through AgriFuture.
Thank you.
And you just tell me and I'll.
Yes. Thank you. I'm sitting here because I need to look at my notes that are attached to the slides, so I hope that you can still see me in the presentation. So as Beck said, I'm the mission manager for AgriFuture. I think we're a little bit different than other missions in that we're not a government agency, we're funded by government, but this is an independent partnership with a board of directors and around 70 partners, and we have representation from businesses, from academia, and from civil society, and we're also working with government, and we're trying to get them even closer. What I will do in this presentation is I'll take you through at least part of our journey until now, and if you've read the brief, this will be a little bit repetitive, so please forgive me for that. I also want to say that we're still learning, so while I'm here to tell you about what we're doing, I very much also want to hear from you, like what are your suggestions, what are you thinking, so everything is welcome. I can't promise that I'll go home and do it, but at least I would like to hear your views as well. So the challenge, I think I don't think I need to tell you about what the challenge is, but climate change is one of the wicked problems of our century. It's a societal challenge, it's a global challenge, and it requires both global and local solutions. There's no clear owner of the problem. There's also not one solution, and we need this new way of thinking, I believe, to actually solve this challenge. And the Danish response was that the Parliament agreed to set up these 4 inner missions, as they're called, and that was done with a green research strategy in 2020, focusing on some Danish strongholds. Let me just see, because I can't read everything here. So the reason AgriFuture is bigger here is because that's what I'm talking about, so because it's the biggest mission. But we have 4 different missions. One is called InnoSys US. It's on capture and storage or use of CO2. There's mission green fuels for transport and industry, for example, Power to X. And then there's Trace, circular economy with a focus on plastic and textiles. And then of course there's AgriFuture that I'm representing with a focus on climate and eco-friendly agriculture and food production. these are set up as a political decision. It's funded by Innovation Fund Denmark and also from the EU Commission. It is, as I said, not a government agency. We're independent, and we do have strong collaboration amongst these 4 missions. It's a learning journey for all of us, and we're collaborating on how to actually do this. And yes, we're also all still learning how to work mission-based. So the missions, the 4 missions, is a response to the government's Climate Act, where the Danish government has set out to reduce greenhouse gas emissions in 2030 by 70% and in 2050 to reach net zero. It is also a response to some of the SDGs and also to the UNFCCC Paris Agreement. The missions were formally established in April 2022. We have, in agri-future, we have a board, 15 members, and this is plus observers, so it's a large board. We have very good representation from industry and academia. We also have civil society, and we have a government observer. I was hired in December 2022, and I had 2 more people coming on board, a program manager and a program administrator, in August of 2023. And we're still working on, we want to expand the secretariat because this is very few people. We're also insourcing some resources from universities and others. I think a little bit about the setup as well. So we have an administrator, it's called Sikkes Innovation, which is a research center working closely with Danish farmers and also with universities. So we have a vision and a mission, and that is, of course, closely connected to what we're doing. So we want to position Denmark as a leader for innovative, disruptive solutions that enable the green transition of the agri-food system, and we want to contribute to the 70% reduction target in greenhouse gas emissions and also to net zero. At the same time, we want to protect the environment and support Danish nature and biodiversity. And we want to increase competitiveness of Danish business and industry. This is not a small task at all. And you can also see our mission here to power a new generation of green export opportunities, securing the climate, environment, biodiversity, safeguarding food production and employment. We will work fast to create strong results-oriented research and innovation collaborations that build solutions across relevant fields of specialist expertise. And everything is closely interconnected in this sector. And we want to apply a circular, holistic approach to create sustainable solutions for Denmark and the world. So when we talk about sense making, I think this is important. We're based on a roadmap, and there was a process of shared road mapping throughout 2021, which was prompted by this call for writing these roadmaps to apply for these mission partnerships. And this work was done throughout 2021. The main authors are from universities, and there was broad consultation and agreement among around 300 experts in this field. And what it does is the roadmap is backtracking what needs to happen towards 2030 and 2050. And of course, the further out we go, the more uncertainty there is. I think as we usually say is that if we look toward 2030, we actually know quite a lot about what we need to do. But as we move further out, this is where we really need to focus our attention. And then the second part that was done was forming the partnership. So this is a mission to explore and embrace the possibilities within the sector. And this brought together this partnership of businesses. As I said, we have large international and national businesses. We have SMBs, we have startups as part of the partnership. We have 6 Danish universities, and we have civil society. And I think that we've come quite a good way in engaging the stakeholders. So this is not this is a dynamic document, which means it needs to be updated, and we will start that process quite soon. and to ensure that we have this continued legitimacy and buy-in from the different stakeholders that were both part of the original roadmap work, but also moving into the future. Can this, for example, be a national roadmap? Can this be something that everyone who's working in this field looks at and use to plan the work that they're doing? So this is one of the busy slides, and this is to say that this is all interconnected. So we're working on, we have 4 main tracks in the roadmap. There is land use, there is animal-based protein, plant-based protein, and then biosolutions. And then we have a cross-cutting track as well that is, for example, value chain aspects. And that can also be, for example, consumer and user acceptance. It can be regulatory change, what is needed to actually make this transition happen, because we can come up with a lot of interesting solutions, but if the regulatory framework is not in place, so we can actually implement this. And I think a lot of the biotechnology-based solutions can be difficult, where you actually need to change regulation, for example, novel food in the EU. There is also user uptake. It's not just consumers, but of course consumers also have a role to play, because if we come up with new food products, for example, one of our projects is a hybrid cheese, but do consumers actually want to eat a hybrid cheese, or do they want their regular cheese? And there's another project that has developed a methane cleaner that can reduce methane emissions, but you need farmers to also implement that for it to actually work. These are our projects so far. We have 17. You can see that there are only the 4 tracks represented. That is land use, animal-based, plant-based, and biotechnology-based. We do have some that are also touching on the cross-cutting if we're looking at them more broadly. But we have selected broadly projects brought within the roadmap, and we will quite soon hopefully put out a call that will address these more cross-cutting issues. What we're also looking at is to get a bit better at this portfolio thinking, and when that will be part of the process that we're now getting into with a roadmap update. We also want to map other projects and initiatives that are outside of agriculture. And we want to look at where does other funding focus their resources. And one of the places that we've already started is with what we call the Plant Symposium a couple of weeks ago, where we, together with other initiatives called Plant to Food, the plant-based food grant, and also the Green Development Program, Green Development and Demonstration Program. I just needed to translate that very fast. What their focus areas are and what ours is, and we're all getting together and trying to map this with the focus on the plant-based track in the roadmap. But also what I should say is that we actually have limited funds compared to what the challenge is. And you saw the overall challenge in one of the presentations yesterday. I can actually, was it around $9 trillion for the overall green transition? We have now, this is in kroner, so it's not really comparable, but what we have estimated is that we need 12.5 million Danish kroner, billion, sorry, Danish kroner. And we have so far 250 Danish million kroner. So we don't have anywhere near the funding that is needed for this transition, but also we don't need to be the ones who are actually challenging that funding. But we do want to secure that we have impact that goes beyond the funding levels that we have. And just to say that with the current funding, we estimate that we will contribute with around 5% of the greenhouse gas reduction potential. And I say potential because the projects that we have now are only taking it to a certain level. They don't take it to full implementation. So they take it to a potential for reducing greenhouse gas emissions, but to reach that full implementation, or the full potential, we need implementation as well. And that's actually one of the areas that we heard is in one of our conferences recently as well, how it's super challenging to actually get that funding to take it to full scale. I think I should probably see if I can.
Where am I? Where to?
So I'm at, should be, okay, so there's one missing there. I'll just talk to this then, I'm sorry about that. So this is our governance model, and I think this is a very traditional, or maybe not, model for how to work mission-based. So we're working on directionality, so towards the 2030 and 2050 goals, we want, so there's a clear goal, it's measurable, we can see if we get there, but also we need to be able to learn from our failures and successes and continually adapt new strategies accordingly. And for portfolio management, we also need to create this dynamic portfolio where we can, our aim is, of course, to create solutions that have lasting impact, but we also need to encourage experimentation, creativity, and risk-taking. And on top of that, we also need this agility, ecosystem agility, where we can involve cross-sector collaboration and partnerships. We want to advocate for maybe regulatory and policy changes, but we need to also be able to include and shed both partners and projects as we move through this journey. And now we can move to the next one. So our goal is to work in what we call the quadruple helix. So that means civil society, industry, government, and academia, and also to work interdisciplinary. So of course, different disciplines at universities as well. We do strive to have a distribution of partners that go across all four. The board does as well. And I think that if just to say something about our strengths and weaknesses, so we have very strong representation from businesses and from research in agriculture. Where we're maybe a little bit more challenged is on government and civil society, where we have a civil society representative in the board, and we also have a government observer, but we would like to engage even closer with them. And what we're lacking is, for example, retail, consumers, the vocational schools, and then we do have representation from a farmers organization, but it could be interesting to also see how we can work closer with farmers. Go to the last one. I've just put up the questions here that I think that you'll now maybe put it down to 2 questions instead. But I don't want to, I wouldn't want to read these, but I just want to say something about also what I'm thinking about on a daily basis. And it's something about how do we navigate complexity versus acceleration, and how do we engage and involve all relevant stakeholders, and both the ones that should be part of the missions and the ones that are external stakeholders that we should engage with. How do we ensure action now and create results and new innovations in the future? How can we create new incentive structures, and do we need to measure differently? And how can we also do things differently and work differently as a mission, while at the same time we're in this place of organizations that are still working in a more traditional way. Government does as well. And how do we also ensure sort of like the good or the correct project portfolio? And one of the things that I'm also thinking about is, like, what is the job of a mission manager? Is it more to be a facilitator than a manager? I think those were some of my thoughts. And I will end here.
Fantastic, thank you. Okay. So we're going to go into, let me just swap. Yeah, we're going to go. All right, our first prompt We're going to spend 10 minutes having a little think in our groups about, based on what you've heard, and it was really nice, I think, to end there with the things that are really top of mind for you day to day, and I think that that's a great provocation for each of our groups, about what are the challenges this policy design approach might pose to implementation. So when we start to do it in practice, what kind of issues do we expect would arise? So 10 minutes to have a chat, and then we'll come back together and there'll be a chance to pick Annette's brain a bit more. No, I think, no. You can also think about in your own context, if you were to implement something similar, what would be the issues that would arise?
Do you maybe have a pencil or
A pencil. Let me see.
well, otherwise we do it on my phone. Yeah, I had one. Yes. Well, it's okay. I do it on my phone. That's fine.
Yeah. Okay.
These are all like organizational factors, but I think it's missing